Yep. What's up? Hi, welcome back to the shop. Are we good?
Yeah.
Sorry. Hi, welcome back to the shop and welcome to another live stream. I'm your host, Matthew. In front of me, behind you, is my producer wife, Emily. Say hello.
Hello.
She's going to be manning the chat and pressing all the buttons and doing all the editing and all that fun stuff. And relaying your questions and comments in my direction. She's got to step away for like 5 seconds real quick. But what we are doing today is putting some linear rails on the y-axis, the bed axis, on my Sidewinder X2. I had planned on doing all this on my X1 like last year, but never got to it. And now it's kind of not a relevant subject for most people nowadays. And that thing prints pretty good the way it is. This one, the y-axis, is a little meh, not as smooth and nice as I would like it to be with the V-slot rollers. So here we have a couple of these guys that I'm going to figure out how to mount on there and make that move on those because they're much more rigid and much more stiff and much more smooth. I posted about this last night, yesterday evening sometime, and I did see a few comments on Facebook saying like, hey, this is a pointless mod on this printer. It doesn't make a difference. You don't get any quality difference, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And I understand that. And folks are right to a point. You probably won't see a big difference in print quality by doing this modification. Minus one thing, if your V-roller, your V-slot wheels have dents in them, you definitely see that in your print. And that can be a pain to get adjusted, especially since this one has 6 of them. It's difficult to get adjusted correctly, but when you do, yeah, it works okay, but they tend to wear out fast and get dents in them relatively quickly, even if you don't have them too terribly tight. You could switch them out for polycarbonate wheels, the clear ones, and that does help tremendously. That's what I've done on my X1, and it's been great. Although they kind of squeak, I got to use like silicone lubricant on them from time to time to keep them from squeaking. But one thing they do have an issue with is if you start printing a little faster, they don't absorb or they don't hold up. You get more ringing and more vibration and more artifacting in your prints. And I've got this machine on clipper now, and I've got it tuned pretty good. It's running pretty good. So I want to start cranking the speed up and getting the input shaping and all that tuned. And one thing that helps is when you print faster is having a stiffer motion axis, which that's what this gives you, is a really stiff axis, like really stiff linear motion that doesn't cause too many, doesn't cause the artifacting that you would see if you tried to print really fast on something with V-slot rollers. You'll get some weird vibration and weird artifacts where you don't get that when you have nice stiff linear rails. So that's what we're going to do, and that's where I expect to see a big change in print quality, or not really a change in print quality, but my ability to print faster and not affect print quality with the speed on a mechanical standpoint, because the machine the machine can print pretty quick. It can move these things, the axes around fast, and with the Volcano hot end, it can definitely push the plastic out, but you become limited to how the machine is mechanically rolling around and moving on its axes. And that's what, long story short, these make it go, these allow you the ability to print faster and have quality prints. That's the long and short of it. So, what do we got?
So we had somebody in Sweden who says they're not going to be able to make the live stream, but they did suggest that they would like for you to make an idea maker video with your configuration for Clipper.
Yes, that is actually in the works. I'm planning on that. I've been working on my idea maker profiles and getting those set up. And if you do have a Sidewinder X2 with Marlin, I have officially my Sidewinder X2 PLA profile is officially in the idea maker library. So when you go add printer, you could click import from idea maker library, look up Sidewinder X2, and my profile is there. So it took a while to get it there, but it's there, and I plan on getting more uploaded to that as time goes. So, but yes, I will do a video on. I have plans for a series of videos on Idea Maker, beginner's guides, and how to use it and such, because it really is fantastic. It's a very underrated slicer. So
Ricardo says, "Good night, guys. Hope you are well today." So I think nighttime for Ricardo, I think is why we say good night.
good night, Ricardo. Yeah, he's in Portugal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good night, Ricardo. Thanks for stopping by and saying hello. And welcome everybody that is here.
So we have Andrea who says, "Hello, folks."
Hello, Andrea. How's it going? Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you staying up late and joining us tonight.
We have Steven who says, "Good evening, guys." Steven also says the plate is sometimes not 100% flat, so it's worth getting a CNC steel plate.
So, are you talking about the carriage plate that's underneath? I saw a post about that, but one problem with that is when you have a big steel plate, that is an enormous amount of weight you're adding to an already very heavy moving axis. You could do a relatively flat piece of aluminum, like stamped aluminum, rolled aluminum, like basically how this is. And the stuff's pretty malleable. If it's tremendously bent, you could probably straighten it enough that it's going to be fine. But we'll see as we break into this thing. I do plan eventually on ditching the glass and getting a cast aluminum surface for it, because that's going to be much lighter and flatter and more even with the heating, because the glass is terribly uneven.
Be interesting to see you mill one, CNC one.
Well, I don't have a CNC.
Have you play with one of your tools in the garage and make one?
Right, I have a milling machine, but I mean it's doable.
Steven says yes, the carriage plate.
Yes. Yeah, I think going with steel, you would lose the ability to really go fast, because your accelerations would have to be tremendously low to not have that thing really bang around just that amount of weight. That's a lot of weight. But I saw a post about it. Someone has it. It looks cool, and I bet it's stiff. But I'm not sure about speed. But if you're not going for speed, you want just straight up quality, yeah, it's a good idea. But I'm trying to go for both speed and a little bit of quality. Yeah. So who else? Anything else? All right. Well, let's get to it. For those of you who are wondering about this or want to do this at some point in time, a viewer that I talk with from time to time, he had suggested 3D printing a template to use for drilling the holes in the carriage plate for the blocks. And I don't know why I didn't think of that. I was going to just print it from CAD and kind of use that as a template, but saving it to PDF, it won't scale right to share with people that way. So having an STL for it that is to scale is a good idea, and I will do that. I started working on it here a little while ago, and I will have an STL file for the template for this, for those that want it. So.
Rich asks if he missed anything good.
Nope, you've not missed anything good, Rich.
You
Thank
missed
you for
all
joining.
the good stuff,
all the good
Rich.
stuff.
Like we went through all the good stuff while you weren't here.
Oh man, so much good stuff.
So Andrea says, cast aluminum bed helped me a lot with keeping even temperature, especially when the printer was in the basement this winter and ambient was 0 degrees Celsius. Oof.
Holy cow.
Even if the printer wasn't an enclosure.
That thing was probably working hard to stay warm, because that hunk of aluminum will cool off quickly. All right, I'm just getting this out of the way.
Gilbert says, "Hi Matt, glad I could join for a bit. My son wants to play Minecraft together."
Oh man, I'm jealous. I want to play Minecraft.
It's been a minute.
It's been so long since we played Minecraft.
I bet there's so much new in Minecraft I haven't seen yet.
There's so much new. I dabble with it from time to time just to see the updates. It's pretty cool. Welcome, Gilbert. Thank you so much for joining us.
Steven says, "I don't like printing fast anyway. I like quality and print at 0.12 and 0.08 layer."
Wow, what nozzle do you have? You're printing those thin layers.
So I'm hoping that I've got this right. KCD arced, or I might be putting my space in there in the wrong spot. It says, "Will this work on the Sidewinder X1 as well?"
It should. There are subtle differences between the actual for the extrusion for the y-axis as far as some hole placements, but since you have options for mounting holes for the rails. You don't have to populate all the holes. Maybe 3 or 4 of them. These things are incredibly stiff, so it should work. And there may be a little bit of a difference in the carriage plate, but it won't be enough to be, I wouldn't expect it to be enough to be an issue. And that's something I could look at later and could take that apart and compare it and see exactly if there, I mean, I could 3D print the jig for this, try it on there and see what happens. And then if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then I'll let you all know. But I would say it's safe to say that it would work. There we go. Did I miss one? There it is. All right. And lay that flat. Just like that. I do like on the X2, they've done like a pseudo ribbon cable for the power. That's such a way better way to do it. On the X1 was terrible. Move those out of the way, and our carriage plate. Yeah, this looks identical to the X1 carriage plate. But we need to remove it, and we need to get that belt off. Of course, I forgot my cutters. I'll be right back.
So KCD's cart says, or ARCT says, I would greatly appreciate that.
Absolutely. I will absolutely compare.
Steven says, I have a CHT nozzle, 0.4 millimeter.
0.4 CHT. That's impressive that you could print layers that thin on a nozzle that size. I've just started tinkering with a 0.25 nozzle in my Revo setup, and I'm printing 0.1 layers, and it's turning out really nice. I'm not sure how much thinner. I mean, obviously I could probably go thinner. If you were able to print at 0.08 with a 0.4 nozzle, that's pretty good stuff. All right.
Christopher says, hi all.
Hello, Christopher. Thank you for joining. Welcome.
Here we go.
Sorry.
Let's see. Steven says, I'm about to move to Clipper on my X2s and my Genius Pro.
Ooh. It's a good conversion. It's fun. If you need help, shoot me a line. I've got it going on here pretty good, so I could absolutely help you. And I'm going to do a video on how to do Clipper on this, like a full edited how-to total tutorial at some point in time.
So are you officially on the Clipper bandwagon?
Yes, I like Clipper. Clipper's fun.
Took pulling teeth to get you on the bandwagon, but
Pulling teeth, you mean the cost of a Raspberry Pi?
yeah.
Ugh, that sounds terrible. This printer isn't even that old either, and it's already like worn out. Little wrench. Let's loosen these up. Bye-bye eccentrics, huh? There we go, now we're loose. Actually.
KCD Art says, Clipper changed my life.
It's life-changing. It is pretty cool. Now, I am having an issue with my start G-code macro where it will do a purge line, and at the end, it'll just squirt out a bunch of plastic. And I don't understand why it's doing that. So maybe you could actually help me out, or anybody that has Clipper can help me out with my start G-code, because it's I can't take one directly that I use in Marlin and stick it in because it acts funny. So it's obviously the way Clipper interprets G-code for that. So I want to get that better, especially if I want to share my configuration and my macros. I want to get that working right before I do share it, because it's annoying. It leaves a big blob and then it drags it with the nozzle, and half the time it destroys the first layer. So I gotta like really watch the first layer go down like a hawk to make sure it doesn't blob on me. So
somebody says, Clipper is fun. Finding a Raspberry Pi is a pain.
yeah. Oh, these would be.
Steven says, I hate to say, but I bought a Sonic pad.
You bought a Sonic pad. Why do you hate to say it? It sounds like it's a cool product.
I think it's like half the price of a Raspberry Pi too, if I remember right.
Yeah, it's like 100.
Which is nice.
Bucks, yeah. So I need to get an actual Allen wrench. So I have a bag of my Allen wrenches somewhere. Here. I'm never totally prepared for these things. It's never just so. I know I have an Allen wrench that fits. This is just my sack of wrenches. Aha! Oh, those were tight. No way those were coming off by hand. Is it not going to slide off? Come on.
Chris says, I've had decent luck with the La Potato clipper.
I've heard a few people say that the potato works. Has anybody got an orange pie to work with it?
See, Gilbert says, would anything need to be printed to install the linear rails on the X1?
Not necessarily. The biggest thing is you're going to have to either get a different carriage plate or drill holes in the one that's currently in it, because it's going to be mounted to the blocks, right? So one small difference that I've just noticed is that on the X1, for the belt tensioner has T-nuts for it, and on this it's actually like threaded into the extrusion, which is interesting that there's still enough play in those holes. I guess they're pretty loose fitting clearance holes that you could get it adjusted. So, boy, I'm running out of space here.
Steven says, I already got my linear rails on the X2, but I paid a lot on AliExpress for the kit as it already had the carriage plate.
Ah, yeah, and I've seen a couple of kits on AliExpress and various other e-vendors. Oh, man, bearings are just trash. That one's perfect, junk, perfect, yeah, okay. So the two junk bearings is probably where I'm getting some strange artifacts in my prints.
Rich says, I got super lucky last week and walked into a micro center and they had 3 Pi, 4B, 2 gigabytes. So I got 1 and a 7-inch screen to clipperize my Sidewinder X1.
Nice. Now how much were they? Is Micro Center charging an arm and a leg for them, or is it reasonable?
He didn't say he paid for them. He said he walked in. He didn't say whether or not he walked out with it before or after paying.
We're not going to start accusing people of being kleptos.
I didn't. Just joking.
Okay.
All right, so Chris says, I installed a full linear XYZ on my Sidewinder X1. Haven't upgraded the X2 yet, other than running the clipper on it. Cool.
I've done a linear rail on the Z-axis on my X1, and it's pretty cool. I want to do it on this, and I've decided I know what rails I want to get. They're going to be a little different, so.
He says, yeah, being no Wi-Fi is a bummer, but I have my printer sitting on my server rack anyway. Easy enough to run a 3-inch cable.
There you
go. Rich says, I've got La Potato running on Octoprint for my Ender 3. It's a great little board, just miss the building in Wi-Fi. Oh, I see. That's where Chris was talking about the Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now...
And someone asks, full linear rails on the X1, is it really good?
For the Z-axis, it's amazing. And that is due to my extrusions on my X1 are not even. They're tapered. And so that helped a lot because I was able to even them out with the rails. And so I have nice layers, nice flat walls.
See, Rich gets me. He says MSRP. LOL, I did pay for them. He gets it.
Well, what's MSRP on the 2 gig one? $50 or something like that? Man, we need a Micro Center here. I'm so jealous.
Ricardo says, as long as you're able to install Ubuntu?
Ubuntu?
Or Armbian on the box.
Okay. So those are just different variations of Linux. So many parts. Oh, those were tight.
$45?
Oh, I'm jealous.
You only bought one?
I would have bought them all.
Put them on eBay for $5,000 a piece.
It's called scalping, and that is crummy. Don't do that.
Obviously, you're not fun today.
I'm always fun. Calm down. Calm down.
Steven says the Y-axis kit was $150. I'm not good at my international dollar signs, my international money signs.
Is it like an E? Like the euro?
The little loop-de-L thing.
I don't know. Lira? I don't know.
Gilbert says, I think I have the same with my X1. I have a feeling that the extrusions are all out of whack.
Yeah. And you wouldn't be the first one. Mine are actually like, it's like the end of the actual extrusion, like manufacturing, where it just tapered off at the end, where it ran out of aluminum. But they just YOLO and went with it.
Oh, Rich says they only allow one per household per month. Otherwise, I would have bought all of them.
Wow.
As I know a few people looking for them.
You know, that's reasonable. I can see that just because the supply is so low and MSRP. If you're able to...
Because you do have a lot of people scalping them, though. Like, you got a lot of people buying them and selling them for astronomical prices.
Big time. eBay is a honeypot of scalpers.
So Chris says, I did migrate off the Potato and have both my X1 and X2 running on the Pi 4B with 2 Clipper instances.
Nice.
Just finished that upgrade last night, though. Still running through my testing pieces here.
Okay. Now, when you do multiple instances of Clipper, how do you switch between printers? Is that done in Mainsail, or do you have a different host name for each printer, like a different Mainsail installation? Like that confuses me. I don't know how that works. Okay.
So Steven says, so now I'm thinking getting the carriage plate CNC for me, then buy the rails, which should be cheaper.
Yeah. Now, if you look at this carriage plate, this is a thick piece of aluminum. It's THIK thick. We'll measure it here. This is a 4 millimeter thick hunk of aluminum. That is going to be extremely stiff, and it's not too incredibly heavy. I think going with a hunk of steel, I don't know. You do it and tell me. But this is plenty serviceable. The only thing that will be weird is that the rail and the block here will lift it up. So the belt offset's gonna be a little different. So I'm probably gonna have to cut the holes here, or either cut these ears off and 3D print something that will go on there that will screw in, or machine something out of some aluminum that will screw in. But it would be kind of cool to integrate some belt tensioners on there. Be a little difficult to get to, but kind of worth it. I'll think about that.
So George asked, who's better, Clipper or Marlin for the X2? And Chris responds saying, where did it go? Chris responds saying he's fully on the Clipper bandwagon.
Yeah, Clipper's pretty cool. Now, Marlin can definitely compete with print quality and speed. Now they have the input shaping, and if you could tune it right, it does pretty good. The biggest thing is how do you want to interface with your printer, right? So with Marlin, it's a much simpler in a way. You know, copy to an SD card and stick it in, or go ahead.
That's so distracting.
Sorry. Where with Clipper, obviously, when you have a web interface, it's nice to drag and drop files, and I think it's going to be down to a preference. I do like the convenience of being able to change things quickly in the configuration and stuff like that as you tune. It's nice, and I like the web interface. I like a Mainsail. I really, really wish that Idea Maker would connect to Mainsail, but it doesn't. It can connect to Octoprint. So if you use OctaClipper or OctoPi with Clipper, you could connect that to Idea Maker and slice and import directly from the slicer, which is super cool.
So the little loop-de-L thing is the Great British Pound.
The Great British
Pounds.
Pounds. I don't know what the conversion rate is for that.
Let's see. So Chris responded up above saying, it's your choice for the rails and the CNC and all that, and says, rails can vary in price and quality. CNC isn't cheap, but it does make it more custom and more yours. True.
And you're right, definitely about the rails. I got these off of Amazon, and I have links for them in the video description. They're 400 millimeter long, MGN 12H. So they're 12 millimeters wide with the higher load block, the bigger block. And they're pretty good. They're from Two Trees, the Amazon store for Two Trees. And they're like 20 bucks a piece, 20, 30 bucks a piece, which is really not bad. And they're decent, like they're pretty good. I had to do a little bit of cleaning on the bearings, but overall I'm more than happy with them. So, I mean.
As for your clipper question, Ricardo says, you get a different port for each clipper instance. And Chris says, you get one IP multiple ports, i.e. 7125, 7126, and you can switch between printers in the same GUI.
That's pretty cool. I'm going to have to experiment with that because I would really like to get clipper on my Core XY machine some point in time. Okay. One thing that if you do this mod, and depending on how you do it, you could stick one right in the middle. Do you want to go to camera one?
Well, you've been all over the place.
Huh?
You've been all over the place.
All over the place, right? So if you decide to just do one in the middle, which you can do, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that other than you might get a little bit of lateral bouncing. You don't have to worry about the height off of the extrusion. Now, the screws that hold that down, they stick up a little bit above the face here. There are ways around this. On this, the washers for them are really thick, and I tested it with a thinner washer and it clears it just fine. If you don't have access to thinner washers or just due to manufacturing tolerances of these things, which are not great, you could easily just file the heads down about 1 millimeter. Well, not easily, that would take a little bit of time, but it's doable, and you still have plenty of meat in the actual hex portion of the fastener to get a wrench in there without causing issues. So, or if you have access to a lathe, turn them down, whatever. So I'm gonna do these one at a time and get smaller washers in them. Yeah, that is a very thick lock washer that they use for that. So, and I have this kit is on Amazon. I have this linked as well, along with the T-nut kit. So everything you need to get this started, I have linked. What? Magnets. Magical. And I have big plans for how to do the Z-axis on this. You'll see. You will see. Big plans. It just clears.
There's good conversation going on here.
Yeah, what's up? Tell me.
Oh, just people chatting away with each other.
Good. Chat away.
Like starting out the conversation with at this person, at that person, just conversation flying left and right.
Nice.
I can't keep up with it all, so just letting them all chat.
How many people are with us today?
It says currently 15.
Wow. I'll take it. All right. Make sure those are good and torqued. There we go. That's that for now. Now, so one thing I am debating on is, do I want to do, so I'm going to do 2 rails like this. Do I want to do 2 on one side and 1 block on the other? Or do I just do 2 blocks? I think just 2 would be fine. I don't think I need the 3rd. So I'm going to very, very carefully take this off of here and hopefully not get bearings everywhere. I need a tray to do this over though. Where did I have my... deal. We'll be right back. Always forgetting stuff. I just always be forgetting, and I need to get organized here. I'm making a huge mess. Sorry, everybody. Loud noises. Move this stuff out of the way. Okay.
I like the way you say organized and you're just throwing everything on the other side in a pile.
Okay. Out of my way. All right, we're gonna. That one could use another bearing in it. That one's missing a bearing. So while I'm at it, oh yeah, that's missing a bearing. I'm gonna add a bearing to it. Hopefully without sending the rest of them flying. There we go. Perfect. These are self-serviceable. Just gotta be careful, the bearings can get lost. But they're a common size. These are, oh, that's a fan case. I don't remember what size the bearings are. Tiny, but you can measure them and look them up.
Rich asks, is it really a project if you don't make a mess?
That's true. That's a good question. It's not a project if you don't make a mess. All right. All right, here we go, here we go. Now, some T-slot nuts. And these ones will take M3s. And we're gonna do this on the end. The nice thing is 2 Trees sends these rails out with little rubber plugs you could stick in the screw holes to keep the blocks from just flying off, which is most excellent. So, all right, and I think I'd done skip 3, yeah. I think that's what I said I was gonna do.
Chris says, it's only a project when the lady gets upset with me for taking up kitchen counter space with my build because it's easier access.
I have not taken over the kitchen yet.
Yeah, you have.
When did I take over the kitchen?
See, you don't even know.
What?
The first week that your first printer lived with us, it lived on the kitchen counter.
Because we had no home for it.
Okay, but that's taking over the kitchen.
But it was easily movable.
But it's taking over the kitchen.
No, it's not.
See?
No.
See, we're with you, Chris. We're with you.
Quit that. Blasphemy.
The problem is he doesn't consider it taking over the kitchen when his stuff is in there because,
It's
you know.
my kitchen too. I mean,
Oh.
yeah, it's true. I already have a screw on that. I figure, like, if it's a project that can't be moved until it's done, that's taking over.
Rich says, uh-oh, someone's in trouble.
Rich, I live my life in a constant state of being in trouble, so I'm used to it. Oh, interesting. Do I need to skip 4 holes? Is that what I need to do? Did I do this wrong? Probably. I think 4 fasteners on each one should be plenty. I just skipped the wrong amount of holes.
Rich says, my Sidewinder X1's on my kitchen table, but then I live alone.
So, yeah, that's fine. No harm, no foul, man. Oop.
Yours lived on my desk, my work desk for, I don't know, what, a good 6-7 months?
Yeah. For a good while it did, until we got this set up. Mm-hmm. But this was a long time coming at that point. Well, kind of. It was an excuse to clean up the upstairs. And up. Okay, so. Dun, dun, dun.
Are you calling me out for keeping a messy house on the internet? Really?
No. All right, do I want it like that or do I want to move it back a little bit? So one thing is that what I meant by options is that my idea for where to put these things is not going to line up right. I got to move a couple of them, but that's okay. We can do that. So the back one's got to move. And this is going to be, for those of you who want to do this, there's some trial and error to it. That's with, any modification you do. Experimentation, just try not to do anything super permanent if you don't know that it's going to work. So I'm not going to cut off any portion or modify any portion of that until I know this is going to work. I planned on drilling some holes in it for mounting to these today, but I don't know if I'm going to get there.
Yeah. 20 minutes.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to be able to get there, but that's fine. That gives me time to actually 3D print the jig and make sure that'll work. But it was going to be a good excuse to use one of my... I've got new drills and I haven't used them yet.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Okay. Yeah, these are in there correct. Okay, these little T-slot nuts can be a bit fiddly because they kind of will cam in and rotate as they tighten, but sometimes they won't rotate like all the way. If you've ever dealt with them, you know.
All right, Chris, Steven, I've gotten a little bit lost in your conversation. I know y'all are having a great conversation, but I noticed Chris says that he was chatting with Matt about the linear rail upgrade and the hot end for the PCB with the BL Touch. Mm-hmm. And for sure, if ever you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Matt. He's always happy to answer.
Always, yep. And I stay up kind of late just because I work swing shift at my job, so I could always answer late.
Or
if
early.
Need be. Or early.
For most of y'all.
Yeah. All right.
Chris says, but I'm wondering if that's what inspired this upgrade.
His post?
Did you helping him with his linear rails inspire your upgrade here that you're doing?
No. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while. Like, I wanted to do it on the X1, and I bought these for doing it on the X1, and they've just been sitting on a shelf for like a year. And I decided, I need to do more X2 content. Well, with my wife's help, deciding that we need to do more X2 content.
Steven says, Matt, what's your plan for the Y end stop?
I will 3D print a block and just lift it up. I don't think that's catching. Nope, that one's not catching. You could feel when they don't catch, so back it off and then turn it fast. There we go. All right, that is in. Like glass. Now we gotta do the other side. So, and these should work just fine. The same configuration, the same setup. Okay. Yeah. And one thing, I'm gonna kind of go all out on this since I'm decided to do all this on the X2 instead of finishing the X1 the way I had planned, is I have some 40 by 40 extrusions for the uprights. So I'll have to tear this thing down to the nuts and bolts at some point and do some machining of the slots that hold them, some new holes, obviously cut them to length and redo all that. I want to get ball screws for the Z-axis because I like ball screws, and Ziltech has them for not too expensive and they're pretty nice. Yeah, just go all out on it. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be completely unnecessary, but a total blast. And that is another thing. Someone had commented, like, it's, what's the cost benefit of this? The amount of money you put into doing these modifications can definitely be saved, and you could buy a better machine, for sure. But where's the fun in that? Right, honey? What?
No comment.
What did I do?
Nothing.
Oh.
No. Ray popped on, says, hey, everyone.
Hi, Ray. How's it going?
Let's see. To the end stop question, Chris says, responded to Steven, says, I'm curious to see what he does there, too. I used a longer screw and a T-nut a longer screw, a T-nut, and a block to place the end stop. It says it triggers when the carriage roller hits it.
That works. Yeah. Biggest thing is how far back this goes. The wire for the end stop is a little short, but I think there's a little bit of slack in here. Yeah, there's a decent amount of slack in here. On the X1, there's no slack. On here, there's plenty of slack.
Rich says, so you're building a whole new printer almost.
Essentially, yeah.
That's exactly what Chris said.
So,
he says essentially.
And I'm thinking, like, I'll have this whole assembly, basically, that'll be replaced. I'm wondering if I could shove this on the X1, change a few of the inside electronics, because the way it interfaces electrically is a little different, and have like a hybrid, like an X1.5. That would be fun. That would be hilarious. Be the only one of its kind. Maybe. Oh. This is fiddly. And use the, I think these are 8mm socket head cap screws. M3 by 0.5mm thread pitch, and they're 8mm long, and it's 8mm of thread length. So with a socket head cap screw, the length of it that it gives you is the thread length. With a countersunk cap screw, it's the total length. So keep that in mind. If you use countersink screws, they measure the total length.
Ray says, I was knee deep in, I don't know how you pronounce that, Ubuntu?
Ubuntu.
And forgot the live cast.
The live cast?
Yeah, he came in a few minutes late.
Oh.
Because he was knee deep in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. At least you came on in when you did. We really appreciate it. The second time
we talked about that Ubuntu today.
Ubuntu, yeah. It's just a Linux thing.
Rich, for sure, anything Matt does on his printer is basically a I'll do it because I can kind of thing.
Yep.
Says, but then does the extrusions sound like it's a bit of a I'll do it because I can?
Yes. So you'll run into this. You want to go to this camera? I can show the crowd.
What?
The problem I'm having here. Okay, so I've tightened that down a couple of times, and it just doesn't quite cam in and hold. So it takes doing it a few times, and I've noticed what helps is to back it off until the threads kind of click, like you're backed off completely, and try to thread it in kind of as fast as you can, and it should cam in, and that worked.
So Steven says, I've just had it confirmed that the carriage plates are aluminum.
Oh, they are? Okay.
And we have somebody who asks, what do you think of the Creality K1 announcement?
So I was looking at that yesterday, and I was really tempted to buy one. And then today it's like, let's go ahead and buy one. And they're sold out of pre-sales. It's like, dang it. But I did email them and to ask them if they would be willing to give me one as a review unit. I haven't gotten a response. I doubt that they will.
Pretty sure everybody wants one as a review unit.
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere. I saw, so they had posted about just this thing called the K1, but there was no information. So they've been very good at keeping this thing hush hush. And then out of nowhere yesterday, they posted a video on their YouTube with it. And it's totally a Bamboo Labs like knockoff, but at a really good price. So it's, from what I've seen, there's two versions. There's the K1 and the K1 Max. And the only difference is price and build volume. The K1 is your typical 220 by 220 by 250 build volume, where the K1 Max is a 300 millimeter cubed. And that one's $1,000, and the smaller one is $600 US. So that's pretty compelling pricing considering the Bamboo Labs, right? The X1C or whatever is like $1,200 to $1,500 depending on how you configure it, and the P1P is like $700-800. So, all right, tighten those up. Now, there may need to be some adjusting to get these things straight, but one cool thing about these T-slot nuts is they tend to do a pretty good job at kind of tightening even inside the slot. So actually I will measure this and see if it is even. So we got 5105.
Rich says, I think the K1 is nice. They're trying to copy what Bamboo has done. The K1 is same thing you were mentioning, the 220 by 220 by 250, and the max is 300. The PP1 is 256.
Yeah. So it's like with the 300 millimeter one, that's a big machine. It's Voron size basically, right? Obviously there's bigger ones you can get, or you could build a Voron however big you want, but yeah.
Which says that the Bamboo also has the AMS option.
Yeah, the automatic material switching. Yeah, it's super cool, up to 16 colors, which is kind of cool. So we're off by less than a millimeter on this. So
Rich says they look great, but I want to wait and see the reviews.
Yeah, and I could see people wanting to wait because you never know.
Dan says, I really hope they make it a bit more open source than Bamboo too.
Yeah, that is the one downside to the Bamboo, is it's not really quote unquote open source.
Chris says, don't over tighten those screws. I got binding when I went too tight with my screws.
Mm-hmm. You'll get like dents and they'll get stuck.
Gilbert asks, good question. After installing the linear rails, is there anything that needs to be done in the FW?
You might want to lose 10 or so millimeters of your overall build height because it's going to lift everything. So I'm going to try to get it right at 51 millimeters between. Moved a little bit. 51.0304. .0504. Yep. So those are even now. So I'll just snug them up a little bit more. And like you said, definitely don't over tighten them. You could damage some stuff.
Was that the technical term? Some stuff?
Some stuff, yeah. Now, one thing, speaking of the K1 issue, is that I really do suspect that a lot of people are going to be mad at Creality. It's like, oh, they're just cloning or copying the Bamboo Labs. And you know what I say to that? Good. Because how many Ender 3 clones are there out there? How many companies have copied, that design and have kind of ridden on that success? Because the Ender 3 is one of the, if not the most known name in 3D printers, right? Any beginner, like, hey, I want to get a 3D printer, what should I get? 90% of the answers, then I get an Ender 3 because that is the most known 3D printer and everyone has copied that design in one way, shape, or form. So for Creality to see something good like the Bamboo Labs and kind of clone it in their own way, have at it. And if they can make it work as good, better, and have it be more open source or user friendly, good for them. That adds competition to the space of the industry and the hobby, where Prusa isn't the only like high-end option for hobbyists anymore, because it's like,
It's that trickle-down technology. The
Kind
same
of.
thing happens with like electronic technology. You see that the really expensive stuff has the nice technology. It slowly works its way down, and as it does, it pushes
yeah.
that high end to just get better and better as they go.
Yeah, I mean, think about in these machines, the 32-bit boards in them, the ARM Cortex and the STM32 little CPUs in these things. They're cheap now. 10 years ago, good luck. Especially 32-bit, that probably wouldn't happen. You're stuck on 8-bit like Arduino setups, and it was really expensive and hard to find. But like she said, the trickle down effect, you get so much more flooding of that stuff in the environment. So. And I think, good for Creality for the K1. I don't know how good the thing, it could be a total flop. I don't know yet. I'd love to get my hands on one because it does look cool. And the nice thing is there's certain things like say you get the Bamboo Lab P1P, you have to pay for the extra fan shroud for more air. You have to pay for enclosing it and stuff like that. You can't use the LiDAR on it. So For $100 less, yes, you get a little bit smaller build volume, but you still get LiDAR, you get the fan, you get an enclosure. So I think that is an incredible value. It's Core XY, all metal extruder, all that stuff. So, and if it's as good as their Sprite extruder, then yeah, that's really good. So,
long story short, I have a feeling there's a review coming sometime in the future.
yes, I'm gonna keep my eyes open for one of these machines.
Rich says, the walled garden of the bamboo printer is a concern, but after having one for a few months, I can't really complain. They just print right and fast.
That's what I hear, is that they're just a good machine. It's the next step toward just buying it and it working, kind of like an inkjet printer nowadays, right? So it's a great step forward, and I think if other companies can kind of ride on those coattails and use that as an influence to better their machines and to bring prices down, let's do it, you know.
Rich says, I think it's awesome Creality has released the K1, and if they're half as good as they look on paper, it'll be great.
Right. Now, I'm wondering if it was developed kind of either right after the Bamboo Labs or if it was kind of with the Bamboo Labs in a way. I know obviously it's the releases after, but I'm wondering if they have some agreement with Bamboo with some of the design.
How long has the Bamboo Lab been out?
About a year, I want to say. Maybe
Because
not
a lot of
quite that
times
long.
there's like not copyright, but you're not allowed to copy their design for so long, or they've got like certain things in place where you can't.
Right. It's like, okay, you can make a clone of this thing, but give us a year first. It's
Yeah.
kind of like how AT&T had exclusive rights to iPhones, you know. I see.
Steven says, I'm waiting to see what Artillery is about to release and if they're about to announce their new Core XY and resin printer.
Right. So they've got names for those. The Core XY, I think, is going to be the Spider, and the resin, I forget the name of it. It was like some space age name thing. And we're looking at from my conversation I have with the contact at Artillery, they're looking at a July, August release for it. And I'm constantly kind of keep staying in the loop on that. And they said it's not going to be an issue to get me one for review. So
Cool.
I'm looking to get one to review. Hopefully I can get one pre-release so I could do the review and drop the review video on the day, on like day one, you know, like everyone else gets to. That would be a really, really cool thing for everyone. So these are in carriage plate. I can kind of see why people do like an accessory plate for it, because you only get 2 holes on each side to mount it.
He says, yeah, I'll be getting one of the first Artillery Sidewinder, and I just hope I can find room for it.
There you go.
Oh, Artillery Spider, sorry.
Spiders.
Spider.
Yeah.
I can read.
So I have options here. I could stick with the 2. I could add a third or one on one side, or add 2 more. I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to experiment with that. And I can see why people are going with a separate plate now that I'm looking at it. I half expected the mounting width to be wider for some reason. But maybe just the 2 mounting holes would be good enough on each side. 5-minute warning. What you looking at?
The Amazon man.
Oh, the Amazon
Or lady.
man.
The Amazon person.
The Amazon person, right? But it's smooth. It's way smoother. I think I'm gonna start with just a 2 and see how it goes. You know, let it ride. But how far off am I for my belt? Oh, that's like a whole belt and a half width. So yeah, I'm gonna have to make something. And then obviously something for the end stop, because it's about 10 millimeters higher. So that's going to be some CAD work to do. 3D print a jig.
Rich says,
Template.
I wanted to wait for the Spider, but I needed a faster printer now.
Right. Now, I don't expect the Spider to be anything like the Bamboo Lab or the new Creality, but they could surprise us. I expect the Spider to be in the... And this is just speculation. I don't know anything about price point or any of that stuff. They haven't told me anything. Just approximate release time, and that I'm going to get one for review. So, but I do expect it to be in the $400 to $500 price range. Probably a mid-size machine, you know, no bigger than 300 millimeters cubed, and probably still on V-slot rollers.
But that's total speculation.
That's total speculation. In that price point, they could put it on linear rails, and I know it's possible because the SP5 is on linear rails, and it is a very solid frame and motion axis for that machine. Electronics, not so much. They didn't do a good job on that. But artillery has the opportunity to compete in an area where there's really no competition for Core XY printers. You have mainly like Tron XY and the Two Trees printers, and there might be a few others that I don't know, like small name printer companies, but there's only two big name 3D printer companies that are making Core XY machines that are in that $400 to $500 price range. So, that I know of.
Ray says, I asked Lucy at Artillery since I won that naming contest, but she won't tell me very much. So, Ray, are you the one who named it for us?
You're the one.
That's cool.
Dang it, Ray. Yeah, I said, like, hey, how about Tomahawk to go along with the Sidewinder, you know, because there's the Sidewinder missile, and we'll go to the next one, the Tomahawk missile, but they didn't take it.
Well, Sidewinder and Spider are a type of snake, right?
A spider is a spider.
There's a spider snake.
There is?
I think.
I've
Could be
never
wrong.
heard of
I
a
could be
spider
just
snake.
going crazy, but I'm going to Google it later.
I think a centipede is a spider snake. Because it's a snake with legs, lots of them.
That makes no sense.
Well, good for you, Ray. I'm
Ray
stoked
says,
for
me
you.
and Vincent Delaro.
That name sounds familiar. Yeah.
So we got lots of comments here. Let's see.
Let's go through comments
Plus we're getting on time here.
Yep.
2 minutes. Jeff says, thanks for sticking with the Sidewinders and engaging with the community in modding.
Of course, you're very welcome. And I'm not done with the X1. I plan on doing some more stuff with the X1 because that's the heart of the channel. The channel started with that printer. So I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm not going to ignore it. There will be more X1 videos, but moving forward, I'm going to obviously have content that is relevant to the topic of the time. So, and right now it's the X2. People want X2 videos. Plus, Artillery wants X2 videos.
Even as you get into other printers outside of the Artillery, you're still going to keep doing Artillery videos?
Yes.
Let's see. We got a lot of comments about assumptions about the new printer.
The Spider.
Rich says, I'm making the assumption the extruder setup for the Spider will be similar to their existing printers. It would make keeping spare parts easier.
Yes.
Somebody says, I'm surprised they didn't mount the rails to the sides to avoid losing a bit of the Z. I just got a Flying Bear Reborn 2, which is 300 millimeter Core XY. It's $500. Aside from not having a bed level sensor, it's pretty nice.
Flying Bear, that's the other brand that makes them. And they're more of a small name. You know, it's not like Artillery or Creality or Two Trees or Tron XY, Tronxy or whatever. So, yeah, and I've heard good things about the Flying Bear machines. And SOLVO or something like that, but I don't know if they do a Core XY or not. I know they do Inter 3 clones.
Steven says his choice was the Mamba.
The Mamba.
Either was the Cottonmouth or the Rattler.
Ooh.
Rattler.
So going with snakes, yeah.
Just to stick with the snake names. Ha
Whatever. Whatever.
Mamba would have been good.
Mamba is cool, yeah.
I like
Party
that.
printer,
I'm sad they didn't go with that. That would have been cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm excited for it. We'll see what they do. Sticking with the same hot-end setup. I'm not sure how they would implement that on a Core XY. Just mechanically. Oh, is it time? Okay. So I got to cut this off. I got to go pick up a little one from daycare. But thank you all for hanging out. I got actually a good portion of this done, more than I expected to get done, honestly. And I have more brainstorming to do on this. But thank you everyone for hanging out and commenting. We really appreciate you coming by and hanging out with us. Yeah.
Griff says Solve SV05 is a cube Core XY shape.
Oh, it is? Okay, so I'll have to...
more out there now.
Okay, I'll have to do some more looking then. When I was shopping a couple years ago...
Hang on.
What'd you do?
I did something.
Oh.
There we go.
When I was
Sorry,
shopping
guys.
for a Core XY a couple years ago, really all I could find was the Tronxy and the Two Trees. So, but hey, more competition in that price point. We need it. So, I said thank you for hanging out with us today. If you haven't yet, subscribe, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, feed the algorithm. You could follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Ethereal Project 3D. If you fancy buying me a coffee, I'm on Ko-Fi. Link to that is below in the description below. Also, links to the hardware I use is all below. That is all. Thanks again. Happy 3D printing. What's up?
Chris says, appreciate you, Mr. Matt and Mr. Matt's wife.
You're very welcome. We appreciate you. But thanks again, and we'll see you all later. Happy 3D printing. Bye-bye.